Coming up on Locked On NBA Daily, there's more drama coming out of Los Angeles when it comes to the Lakers sale. How will this end? Meanwhile, Anthony Edwards makes some bold claims on how good the Timberwolves can be this season, and we take a closer look at their rotation after trading for LaMelo Ball. Locked On NBA Daily starts now.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked On NBA Daily. I'm Wes Goldberg. That's Moore and Haize. We have a ton to get to today. Great show. We've got a deep dive into the Minnesota Timberwolves coming up based on Anthony Edwards' claim that they can beat the Thunder and the Spurs in the Western Conference this season. But let's start with Lakers news. In another twist yesterday, Jeanie Buss is contesting her siblings' vote to sell the family's remaining 18% share of the Lakers after it was reported earlier on Monday that the Buss family voted to sell their remaining shares to the group led by Bob Iger and Josh Kushner at that same $12.5 billion evaluation that Mark Walter agreed to last week. Here's more on what all of this means from the folks at Locked On Lakers.
Jeanie has no real end game here. My initial reaction to this was that Jeanie and the family sort of saw the writing on the wall here. It's going to be a new ownership group coming in. The arrangement that Jeanie had with Mark Walter in terms of being the governor of the team for a 5-year period, whatever it is. You know, Bob Iger, when asked about that by our friend Kobe Price at the California Post, said, we plan to honor the agreement and all that stuff, but if things change, they change. Which is then, if things change, they change. It's essentially, it's not even really a paraphrase. It's almost a direct quote. Look at when the arrangement with Mark Walter. He was a guy who doesn't want to be in the public spotlight, doesn't want to be the voice and face of the Lakers, isn't the voice or face of the Dodgers. That's what Jeanie fulfills. That's her job as the governor. She would have a strong voice in the business of the Lakers and all these other things. Bob Iger is a guy who has wanted for really decades to own an NBA team. Massive.
We got to go to the Prince of Petty here first because, Haize, why is Jeanie Buss refusing to sell? Why is she taking this stand here? Is this petty or is this principled by Jeanie Buss?
I think it may be a bit of both at this point, to be honest with you. I think there is some pettiness in it. I think she looks at it, she was promised for something, but it was always kind of weird, even when the prior owner agreed to let her stay the governor for a handful of years. I think everybody kind of looked at that and said that's kind of odd. But at this point, it's like if everybody's in agreement and Jeanie Buss is the only one that's not, you got to think that this is eventually going to lead to either a buyout or something's going to have to happen here. And maybe that's the principal part of it. There's going to be another set of business done to get this to go through, or Jeanie Buss is just going to, I don't know. If everybody else, all the other trustees are voting to go ahead and move forward and sell their portion of the team, I don't know how much of a legal leg Jeanie Buss is going to have to stand on here.
She shivved her siblings and sold them under the bus and got, so to speak, and got a special deal for herself and the Rambi, Kurt and Linda Rambis, who have been known as the shadow, advisors to the Lakers for a long time. And then the siblings turned around and took this opportunity to do so to her. There's also this weird sentence in the statement about basically getting out while they can.
Right.
And no one quite knows what that means. The implication, I think, is that Iger and Kushner were going to push them out eventually. But then you've got the questions about the Mark Walter sale. I'm just going to go ahead and ask this question. Why are we focusing on paying Kawhi Leonard some extra money when this weirdness is going on? We are staring at the wrong billionaires. What is going on with the Lakers, man? Hey, am I crazy, or does all of this not seem extremely shady and none of it makes sense?
Oh no, it's shady as hell. Let's just be frank here. It's very, very shady. It doesn't seem like I don't know. And then I was shocked to find out that they still even own. It was almost an 17%. Is that what it is?
17.8%, and now they've agreed to sell that, or most of the siblings have agreed to sell that.
That's still a large portion of the Lakers to own. I didn't realize that it was almost that's a lot of chunk for the Lakers to own. Had that even been reported before now?
Well, I'm not really sure, right? Because look, I spent last night reading up on this Mark Walter stuff, and this is like an onion that you keep peeling the layers back, and the next layer just is a little bit stinkier. It is crazy. Like now he's reportedly selling his majority share in Chelsea and all of these things. He's holding on to the Dodgers, does not seem to be moving off of that. But this, like, instant liquidation of so much money that Mark Walter, and we know that, he's being investigated in tax fraud, and just like the legs that of all that is interesting to read up on as well. But to Matt's point, this just keeps this is the shadiest thing right now going on in the NBA, and it's even other NBA owners are like, "Hey, what's going on here?"
So I have a kind of follow up here. So she pushed her brothers out in the last sale structure. She'd been working on that a long time. What I want to know is they needed 5 votes out of the 6 in order to get this done, and I want to know who flipped. Like, that's the other question I have here.
Two of them reportedly flipped.
2 of them flipped here, which is like, again, the book on this and the follow-up film is going to be amazing.
My guess is they saw the $12.5 billion valuation and were like, yep, that's enough money for me to flip. It is just my guess. And that was sort of what I thought when I saw the statement of while we still can. It's like, while we still can make a bleep ton of money on this. Might be the rest of that statement that was left off.
And like her statement also blasts Charania and ESPN for the report. It is messy.
So let's assume then that this Bob Iger group takes control of the Lakers. What does this mean for the Lakers? Because under Mark Walter, who had only been there for a little bit more than a year, they started to trend in a very Dodgers type of direction, even hiring a lot of those Dodgers employees or people that had been advisors to the Dodgers, going in a very analytical direction under Rob Pelinka. Rob Pelinka did reportedly have some assurances that he was going to stay in charge, but they were hiring a bunch of people under and around Rob Pelinka to kind of run the analytics part of this. We don't really know what a Bob Iger Lakers team looks like, Haize.
Yeah, I mean, but if you look at how the thing about Bob Iger, if you look at how he kind of ran Disney, and I'm an entertainment nerd, so I know, like, he empowered a lot of people in their own individual departments to do their job, and then kind of just oversaw. Like, he wasn't I'm going to be in the minutia of everything every single day. And if he tries to carry that over, but he very much was the front man, but if he tries to carry that over, I'm sure he's going to want his people involved. So the Bob Iger part of this, if he wasn't committed to Jeanie Buss, keeping that governor title, I think that it comes down to he wants to put his people in place. That way he can trust the business part of it and then go and collect his money and go sit down somewhere on the island.
I think that the way that I've thought of it is Walter was objectively good for the Lakers if he was not under federal investigation. If he was just allowed to run them like the Dodgers had, that was an objectively good outcome because he spent as much as he could on the Dodgers in every facet. And they won. They won the World Series. They're the most dominant team in baseball, blah, 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 blah. And so, like, it was going to be good for the Lakers to finally have this and move away from the mom and pop show that they've been running under Jerry Buss's kids and move towards a more professional organization. So the fact that that's not happening is a negative here. However, what this does do is it accelerates the odds that Rob Pelinka is gone. And I think that that's a net win for Lakers fans. Like, this just probably means that Rob Pelinka is not going to be GM of the Lakers inside of a year. And sorry, but outside of the fact that he went to coffee with Nico Harrison, he has not really fulfilled the promise of what he's been gifted. That guy had LeBron James and Anthony Davis together. They won a title, but then they barely made the playoffs. Like, the way that he has managed things has been horrendous. So to me, I think if you're wondering about the basketball outcome here, is that the Lakers are going to have a new GM. And I don't know, sometimes when you're trying to find the right leader, it's good to look to a point guard.
That's interesting. And look, I mean, Bob Iger, there's a lot of money reportedly there. They're going to be able to afford to hire somebody that they might want there. So coming up next, we are going to stick to the Western Conference today, where Anthony Edwards thinks that the Timberwolves can make a deep run after trading for LaMelo Ball. We're going to talk about that next. Stick with us. Today's episode is brought to you by Wayfair. Whether you're refreshing one room, getting ready for a new season, or finally replacing that piece of furniture that you've been putting off, Wayfair makes it easy to find something that fits your home, your style, and your budget. You can shop furniture and decor across a wide range of price points with quality materials and pieces designed to stand up to real life. And with Wayfair Verified, product specialists hand vet select products through a 10-point quality inspection, looking at things like materials, functionality, features, and even how long they take to put together. And if you're still trying to narrow down what to buy, Wayfair gives you plenty of real shopper feedback to work with. You can browse more than 20 million verified 5-star reviews, along with real customer photos and feedback to help you shop with even more confidence. When I was designing my home office, I didn't know where to buy a desk. Then I found Wayfair, where I could browse different price points and see real reviews breaking down the look and durability. It made the entire decision feel a lot less overwhelming, like I could actually find something that fits without overthinking it. Join Wayfair Rewards today to get 5% back on every purchase and start saving on your next home upgrade. Head to wayfair.com to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Welcome back to Locked On NBA Daily. The best way to support the show is to subscribe on YouTube. We are Monday to Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, wherever you get your podcasts. We're going to talk more about the Timberwolves rotation here in the next segment, but I want to start with this quote from Anthony Edwards. He was asked about the Timberwolves' chances this season during a visit to Manila, and he told ESPN, when asked about how the trade for LaMelo Ball could impact the Timberwolves' chances to beat potentially the Spurs and the Thunder, Anthony Edwards said, quote, "Against those two teams, I think we're going to beat them," end quote. Matt, are we overlooking the Timberwolves in the Western Conference after their big offseason moves?
I don't think so. I'm still kind of trying to figure out where I land on this. And I think I got to do, I'm going to be really honest, is like, I don't know, because I think that to understand this team, we may have to just see it in action. Like, that's the answer with most teams, is we can think whatever we want, but this isn't even, the problem is it's not about what's on paper. It's about, I don't know how the dynamic is going to work out with LaMelo on this team. I don't know whether he's going to all of a sudden be like, oh, I'm in a winning situation, and sharpen up and stop taking terrible shots and be like, make the most of his talents. I don't know if he's going to continue, if he's going to make Ant's bad habits worse. Like, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to adopt like a rock star personality. I don't know how this goes. The Wolves have been so maddeningly inconsistent the last 2 years. They had a great season where they could have wound up the 1 seed, but wound up in the 3 in 2024. They made the conference finals, lost to a Dallas team that had a really good matchup advantage on them. But the 2 years since then, they've gotten sloppy. So I don't know, Haize. There's a lot of talent here. Maybe you've got like a better idea here. Like, what do you think about this team?
I mean, yeah, I think that they're being overlooked some, and I understand why. I mean, you have San Antonio, you have the Oklahoma City Thunder, even like Houston Rockets in your same conference. All those teams have gotten better. But I think this, like, LaMelo Ball gives Anthony Edwards another offensive weapon to the level he's never had there since he's been there. Like, that's what LaMelo Ball potentially gives next to him. Now, there are also some things and some struggles that come along with that, with LaMelo Ball's health and some of the bad decisions he can make sometimes. But I do think Anthony Edwards also helps with that. Getting Anthony more off ball is something that is a very dangerous proposition that I really like and can't wait to see how that works out, because of LaMelo's ability to be a creator in the half court as well and in transition. Then I also think the thing too is that while Rudy Gobert has been on a backward slide offensively and even defensively to a degree, LaMelo Ball is going to make Rudy Gobert dangerous offensively again, with his ability to get in transition, give him lobs and feed him the ball some in the way that LaMelo can pass. So I think there are some things. Now, they're all theoretical right now. I think a lot of it also comes down to, like, do Jaden McDaniels and Josh Green also make steps defensively? Because you're going to need that. They still have this massive hole at the 4 there, too, that brings a lot of questions. But there's a world in which this works out that I think the Timberwolves can be a very dangerous team in the Western Conference.
I have them projected based off, like, if you do the on paper, because that's one of the things we look at on paper. Well, like, I actually put numbers to these things. Like, the numbers right now are telling me this is a 60-win team. That's because LaMelo is a advanced analytics darling.
Yeah.
Right. And that does put them in the conversation with the Spurs and the Thunder. If you win 60, you're at that level. We'll talk about it in the next segment. I'm also just like, they don't have a starter at one of the positions in basketball. They don't have a player at those positions in basketball. And that seems like a problem. I'm also, Haize, you've always been really high on Ant, and I don't know. I want to ask you, how do you think he has gotten better since 2024 in that first run? He takes more threes.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think that he's gotten better as a player? The Wolves guys last year when they were in Denver, and I talked to them for during the playoff series, one of the interesting things is they kind of talked about, and you can hear this on their podcast, this is not a secret, that his defense isn't quite what it was because of the offensive load. This is pretty normal. A guy becomes a superstar and takes over more offensive load, and he starts to take it easy. So if he's a little bit worse defensively, and he's certainly sharper, but where are the areas that you really see Ant being better than he was 2 years ago?
Well, you said it as a shooter. I mean, considerably as a shooter. He's over the last 2 years, he shot almost 40% both years. I think the year that you're talking about, he shot 35%. So that's going to help there. I think he's also gotten better as a playmaker. The assist numbers I don't think have gone up, but I do think he can facilitate, and he understands a little bit better of when to do that. He just hasn't had another player that really garners a lot of attention offensively. So those are both things that LaMelo Ball can do. And then to the point that you made too, now that he will have a less of an offensive workload that's just on him, so maybe he can give back to get him that energy that we did see on him defensively a couple of years. So I think there's a couple of ways that he's gotten better. I think he's also gotten better as a rebounder. All those things help with this team, and they're probably going to be a more fast-paced transition team than what they've been in past years as well.
His assist percentage went down last year pretty significantly. He dropped from a 79th percentile to 69th, and it's actually a pretty substantial
That's a significant
drop.
Drop. Yeah.
So he's gotten a little bit worse on that. His defensive rebounding rate also dropped. You're right that the scoring is way up because he's way better as a mid-range shooter and as a three-point shooter. When I watch him, I think my problem is that I tend to think that when it's he's comfortable and it's easy and he's able to kind of take over the game, he does. And then I still kind of see that there are just roadblocks that tend to stand in his way from being able to figure it out. What I'm really, I think, kind of getting to is control of the game. And it's not that he's behind the curve on that, because I think he's right where he should be for where he's at in his age, life, career.
Mm-hmm.
But that's going to be the next step, is him learning how to control things. My problem is that what's going to happen with LaMelo, or is he going to revert into more of a pure scorer role? And that's what I don't really know.
Yeah, and LaMelo's not going to necessarily be the guy who's the role model in terms of controlling the pace
I hope
of a
nobody's
game.
Looking for LaMelo to be the role model. It should be the opposite. They need to be wearing off on LaMelo. If this starts happening the opposite way around, then yeah, they're in trouble if that ends up being the case.
This feels like a big budget Marvel movie to me, where the cast and the characters are really interesting, and it could be awesome when we put it all together and just wow, I can't turn away from this team and their must-watch TV, and it's great, and this is just hitting all the notes. Or it could be one of those big budget Marvel movies that is a little bit of a flop, with a lot of promises ahead of time, and then just doesn't really do well at the box office. And that's kind of how this feels to me.
This is definitely Deadpool and Wolverine. It's definitely Deadpool and Wolverine.
Who's Deadpool? Who's Wolverine?
LaMelo is Deadpool.
Yeah.
Doesn't take anything seriously.
Right.
And Ant is Wolverine because he heals from everything crazy fast.
Right. And crazy physical traits. Him and Wolverine. I have no idea how this is going to work out. I really think there's the positives are so obvious where this can obviously help Anthony Edwards, but then the negatives are just, if it goes wrong, there's really not a lot of ways to pivot off of this, which I think is the scary part for Minnesota. But we know Tim Connelly has never been opposed to taking risks. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Timberwolves in the next segment. They did make that big change for LaMelo Ball this summer. How does this impact their overall rotation? That's all coming up next. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed Sponsored Jobs. When workplace chaos hits and you need the right hire, Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps connect employers with candidates who match specific needs like skills, certifications, and location, so less time gets spent searching and more time gets spent finding the right fit. People are finding quality hires on Indeed right now. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. In the NBA, teams spend the entire offseason hoping to find that one addition that can have ripple effects on everyone around them. Teams know that the right hire can make all of the difference. And the same applies to your business. When you find somebody who brings the right skills, attitude, and experience and makes the entire group better. Tools like Indeed Sponsored Jobs can help make that process easier. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. All you have to do is go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on Locked On NBA. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Thanks for making Locked On NBA Daily part of your daily routine and making the Locked On Podcast Network your first listen every day. Stay tuned throughout the offseason as we cover the biggest stories. Right now, we are hopping into the rotation lab where we take one team and build out its opening night rotation. And today, we are sticking with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Some of their key offseason moves as a quick recap: they did trade away Julius, Randle, and Reid. They acquired LaMelo Ball and Josh Green. They signed Trey Lyles to a small contract. They drafted Isaiah Evans, and they re-signed Ayo Jalen Clark, and Bones Highland. Matt, kick us off with the starters.
All right. So LaMelo Ball is going to start point guard. We'll go ahead and get that one out the way. We're going to do Anthony Edwards at shooting guard. That seems like a pretty obvious fit here with him being that person. I'm pulling up my chart. That's what I'm stalling. And then small forward, I think Jaden McDaniels is a small forward. Like, that's what I think. I think Jaden McDaniels is a small forward. Okay. At power forward, your starter is going to be question mark, exclamation mark. And then center is Rudy Gobert. I guess they're going to play Jaden at the 4 and maybe Jalen Clark or Terrence Shannon at the 3. Hey,
Don't overlook Ayo at the 3.
Okay, Ayo. All right, so we're going to play. Do you think of Ayo as a forward or a guard? Because I think of him as a guard.
He's a wing. He can play the 2 or 3. That's how I look at Ayo.
Okay. So I guess we could do that. We could just take the best 5, right? We could just say LaMelo, Ant, Ayo, Jaden McDaniels, Rudy Gobert. That's the starters, I guess.
Haize, that gets us to the rotation where I think there is maybe even more questions.
Oh, there's nothing but questions. There's the question mark. Isaiah Evans is definitely going to be in the rotation. I'll go Bones Highland over Terrence Shannon Jr. I know that Terrence Shannon Jr. has potential, but he's just wildly inconsistent right now. They're going to be forced to play Juan Berenger, I guess. Like, they're going to have to play him.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess as the 10th guy, it's going to I guess Terrence Shannon Jr. is going to have to be in the rotation to some degree. Like, I don't think you can keep him out. Now with this one,
Jalen Clark and Terrence Shannon Jr. were great in the playoff run. They were really good.
They were.
So, like, I think they're in the rotation now. And I think he is a deeply problematic player, but Josh Green is also, like, he's at least
I keep forgetting Josh Green. Yeah,
he's an NBA. Well, for good reason. He's an NBA guy. They also have Trey Lyles hanging around. They can pull on him. They have something called a Zion pull-in. I don't know what that is, but apparently that thing plays point guard.
Yeah, I played college at University of Florida guy.
So,
I have some intel. That's all. Just some
yeah, for sure. Also, okay. Eric Freeman is like on their 2-way. He's currently projected at power forward on Real GM's chart. Let's try and like tighten this up. Okay, so that 5, Bones at the point. You think Isaiah Evans over Jalen Clark? Haize?
Yes. Yeah, I'll say Isaiah Evans.
Let's say one of them gets that. Let's say one of them gets that spot.
It depends. Maybe it's a game day decision.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe
Isaiah
defense
Evans
do we
or
need
Jalen
shooting?
Clark. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So we got Bones, Isaiah Evans, or Jalen Clark. 3 is either Josh Green or Terrence Shannon Jr. Power forward is Trey Lyles, backup.
Lyles Hive. Let's go.
And Juan Bernier is going to be backup center. Their center spots like
The center spot, the ones I'm not worried about, because you got Zakarsky, you got Berenger, like you got a number of players that you can play there.
Is it weird that we have this whole thing about like depth is the thing? Like, look at all the guys that the Thunder and Spurs can put out there and look how much depth they have. And we talked about that so much. And now like the Wolves are like, hey, we got like 4 really great players. Who needs anything else?
Well, they went the opposite way, right? They zigged where everybody zagged. Everybody else got depth, and they said, oh, we're going to trade all of our depth at one position for a point guard.
If you think about the way that this team has transformed also, it's pretty alarming, right? Like, this was a team that a couple of years ago was so big with Rudy Gobert, Karl-Anthony Towns, and Naz Reid. And you think about, okay, they also had, obviously Anthony Edwards on the perimeter, who has a ton of size. Like, this team's strength was its size, right? McDaniel's out there on the perimeter. And now you look at this team and how small they've become after a series of moves, right? In that cat trade, they got smaller. Then they trade Julius Randle and Naz Reid this summer for LaMelo Ball. They're getting smaller. In all these moves, they have gotten smaller. I don't know that it's the wrong thing or the right thing to do, but I do find it interesting that you had this level of success, 2 straight trips to the Western Conference Finals, being big, and now we're going to turn around and go basically the opposite direction and be pretty small because, like we're talking about, there's not a ton of options here in the power rotation. I like Gobert. I like McDaniels. That's the end of the list of guys who are proven that you feel good about.
Here's the thing, though. They still have positional size at just about every other position. It's just the power forward. They have nothing at the power forward.
Last year, they were the biggest question, I think, here is rebounding. That's like my biggest concern, how it impacts defense. They were already 20th last year in defensive rebound rate. So there's kind of an indication here that they were already sliding on that end. And if you go like, well, now it's going to be worse, I actually kind of go the other way where I was like, look, if you're outside of the top 10 anyway, you're not a good rebounding team to begin with. So it's okay if you swap out personnel because your previous personnel wasn't getting it done. But I do think that against 2 big lineups, when they go up against Houston and it's Steven Adams and Şengün, what are they going to do on the glass?
Right.
If they go up against the Nuggets with Aaron Gordon and Nikola Jokic, what are they going to do on the glass? When they go up against the Knicks?
This is something that Ben Beacon over at Locked On Timberwolves has talked a lot about, is he thinks Anthony Edwards is actually best when he's playing up-tempo, pace, full court stuff, but the Timberwolves had slowed things down to such a degree, in part because they didn't have a point guard who could play a lot of minutes, or in Anthony Edwards' case, trusted to be ran a fast-tempo offense. LaMelo obviously changes that. So maybe the answer to all that, Matt, is, well, we're just going to play on the open floor and run these guys off the court. I think that's at least the idea behind all of this.
I worry about injury then.
Yeah.
I just think that puts a lot of strain on if Ant's going to be a high usage, even with LaMelo taking some of that share off. If Ant's going to be a high usage physical player playing up tempo, that just makes me nervous for health reasons. I'm very much of the idea that every team needs to slow the heck down right now for injury preservation purposes.
And we know Dosunmu can play fast, but we don't really know that about McDaniels, and we definitely know that Gobert doesn't thrive.
Am I wrong? I have really kind of targeted power forward as like a really important spot, Haize, because like in the playoffs, in the finals, for example, I thought one of the Spurs' big problems is they don't really have any power forwards, and I thought they were really missing that as a component. I think the Nuggets, when they were without Aaron Gordon, they just completely fall apart, and they didn't really have viable backup options. Like Spencer Jones is good, but he's a 2-way player in what was essentially his rookie season. Am I kind of off on this? Is power forward an important position in today's NBA? Like that's going to be, I think, a starting question with this Wolves.
All the starting 5 positions are important. I think that you can get away with questionable depth at any position depending on how top heavy you are there. And the problem with the Timberwolves is that they don't have a starting 4. You have a player that can start at the 4. You don't have a starting 4. So, yeah, it's important. And they're going to be lacking that. And I think especially when you look at the Western Conference with all the size and all the front courts they're going to go up against, like not having a starting caliber power forward on your team is hugely detrimental if you want to go far.
Can I end the show with, I'm sorry, one question to kind of go back and circle back to what Anthony Edwards was saying about, hey, I think we could beat the Thunder. I think we're going to beat the Spurs. This question, these questions that we're bringing up here, how does that impact their ability to beat a team like the Thunder and the Spurs? These are teams like the Thunder can obviously trend big with Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein. The Spurs have Victor Wembanyama and all of that. Like, what do we think about this team in those matchups, Matt?
The Thunder are kind of leaning more small when you think about it. Like they moved Dort, right? So now it's going to be more like J-Dub, I think, is a really good power forward, but he's more of a wing power forward than he is a power forward.
Mm-hmm.
So like they match up, I think, pretty well there. The double big lineup will give them problems, but if you notice, like the Thunder have kind of shifted, especially in the playoffs, away from double big stuff. They've gone very much to it's Chet and then Hartenstein, and they don't really like to play them that much together. And even then, Chet offensively is usually like spacing, right? So I think that's okay. And like I said, the Spurs don't really have a power forward. So maybe that's kind of the key here is like they have all of the wings to be able to combat all of the Spurs wings. And maybe that's more important for that matchup than it is for what they face. Because obviously like Nas didn't play well in that series versus the Spurs, and neither did Randle. So they basically lost two guys that weren't impactful in the team that beat them last year. I just think that's a bad way to go about team building.
Haize, can either of these teams defend a backcourt of Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball if that's clicking?
It depends on which LaMelo Ball you get. Because LaMelo Ball could technically make it easier to defend that backcourt. If they're both on and locked in, and if LaMelo, like what he learned from playing with Khan and Brandon Miller last year and actually at times taking a bit of a step back or backseat to those guys and facilitating more, if he learned the right lessons and comes into this team and realizes what he needs to do to be able to win, it'd be very difficult to be able to guard those guys if they're both on, because they're both capable of dropping 30 on you any night. But if LaMelo is not locked in, it can get – and I'll say this too. LaMelo came into this league as more of a defender than what he's been. I wonder if like he slowly gets back to being more engaged defensively too now, because he also will have to carry less of an offensive workload. So
it's also the best backstop at center that I think he's ever played with Rudy Gobert, right?
That's
He's
true,
going to be
too.
able to trust the protection behind him a little bit more.
Yeah.
Well, this team is one of the more interesting things, I think, in the league. It's going to be a must-watch, at least for the first couple of weeks of the season as we parse this thing out. But if you like what you heard today, subscribe to Locked On NBA Daily wherever you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. Thanks to Matt and Haize for their expertise every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network your first listen. We'll see you back here tomorrow for more Locked On NBA Daily.